Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. We just got the last batch of the Witchwood cards revealed, and I'm going to give you guys a quick review. It is going to be a quick review, even though there's like 50-some cards here, because, well, a lot of these are filler cards. A lot of these are just arena-centric neutral minions that are just pretty good cards that'll probably be completely hopeless in constructed play. It's also pretty important to know that because it is the first expansion of the year, well, the cards are not going to be that powerful. There's the standard cycle. The first expansion of the year knocks out the 3 expansions that came out roughly 2 years ago, so there's going to be a really small set in the standard card pool. And what Blizzard does is they release cards in this first of the year expansion that are generally on a pretty low power level, and they ramp it up. Now, it doesn't mean all these cards suck. Some of them I think we will see and will be meta-defining in standard until they cycle out, but there's a few less of those cards, and the mediocre cards are certainly very mediocre, so that's important to know. Honestly, I think this is better, particularly for us arena players, because we don't want too many overpowered cards. We want cards that are in line with the classic and the base set, and that's what a lot of these are. Alright, let's get to it too. So we got, in class order, Druid. We have Druid of the Scythe. Kind of an interesting card. You get to choose either a 4-2 rush minion or a 2-4 taunt for 3. Neither of those options are very good, but the choose aspect, the flexibility, certainly adds to its power level, though in my opinion, not enough for it to really be constructed level quality. It's just a pretty good arena card. Then we have a new version of Twilight Drake. It is a 5-mana, essentially Twilight Drake, that has taunt. Is that good? Yeah, that's pretty good, because Twilight Drake, typically in the right deck, and Druid certainly has a lot of hand-filling cards, has a lot of health, and taunt minions with a lot of health are pretty good. The main downside of this is that, well, minions that have taunt and have a large base of their stats silenceable in addition to the taunt, they kind of get annihilated by silence. And silence will absolutely still be seeing some play, because Warlock, Control Warlock particularly, is not going anywhere. Aggro Paladin is not going anywhere, and a lot of the other classes and cards that we've seen are also heavily silenceable. So people are going to play silence, and this card is going to be victim number 1. That doesn't mean it's a dead card, because you can probably play a lot of taunts in that style of Druid deck, and just getting one of them silenced just means another one will not get silenced. So it's probably a decent card, but when silence is no longer being played in the meta, this card is going to be crazy good. Another Druid card, Ferocious Howl. Draw a card, add 1 armor for each card in your hand. I think if you're playing this card, you're almost always going to have an effect that's better than Shield Block, so it's basically a better Shield Block for Druid, which is pretty good. That means it'll probably see some play, but that doesn't mean the overall impact to winning the game and playing this card is better than Shield Block. What I mean by that is, Druid doesn't really leverage its armor as Warrior does. Armor for Druid is typically, oh hey, I'm going to live a little longer. Warrior armor is a bit different. They have cards that directly work off of your armor, much more so than Druid, at least, and Warriors have a lot of weapons, which is trading health for tempo. The Druids, yeah, they get a few buffs to their hero power or their attack for any given turn. They have like pseudo weapons, but it's not the same. Druid armor is not as valuable as Warrior armor, even though this card is better than Shield Block. For Hunter cards, we saw Carrion Drake, 5-mana 3/7 Dragon. Look at that, Hunter only Dragon. The Battlecry, if a minion died this turn, it gets Poisonous. So a 5-mana 3/7 is a pretty good board control card, and let me tell you, as a Hunter, it's pretty easy to lose a minion on any given turn, particularly in the mid-range. So you're probably getting a Poisonous effect, and in Arena we have the 1/5 Poisonous with Taunt and the 2/5 Poisonous without Taunt. Those cards are not bad. So a card that's much higher stats and a dragon, maybe you can get some synergy off of that somehow, I don't know. That seems really good to me. Very powerful mid-range option for Hunter. But again, that's not typically what Hunter does, so we shall see. Hunter has another Poisonous minion, a 5-mana 1/3 Rush Poisonous minion, which is kind of like a crappy Assassinate. It's a little bit better if you have Beast synergy, if you have like a Hyena in play or something, but in the general case, it's a worse Assassinate, and a worse Assassinate is pretty bad. That might be quite good for Arena, because Hunters really struggle to make it in the late game in Arena, but for Constructed, I'm not optimistic about this card. For Mage, we have Arcane Keysmith, a 4-mana 2/2 that you discover a secret and put it into play. So overall, the total card effect is very strong. The aspect of the secret actually being secretive is also very strong. You have to keep in mind when people play Constructed, they know every single card in their deck, they know every single card in their opponent's deck just by the classes usually. So not knowing what the secret in play is means you have a lot of efficiency loss in trying to figuring it out when you're facing it, which makes it pretty strong. The weakness is, well, it's just competing with secret cheating abilities that are in the classic set, like the Kirantor Mage, and it's just so hard to compete with that. It's a really good card, but it's not as good as any of the secret synergy, any of the secret cheating effects that we've seen from Mage in the past few years. So how good is it really? Probably not going to blow anyone away, but might see the card show up from time to time. We have Cinderstorm. It's basically Arcane Missiles Plus for 3. Overall, I feel the amount of missiles is quite weak for 3. For 1 mana, you're getting 3 missiles. For 3 mana, you're getting 5? Like, one mana per missile? That seems pretty crappy, right? Well, yeah, it might be pretty crappy, but people have been talking about Odd Mage being a thing, and, well, you might just not have that many removal options. This might just be the best thing that you can do to remove things in the general case in Odd Mage. So, whatever, I guess. Maybe you'll see some play. Then we have Curio Collector, 5 mana 4/4. Whenever you draw a card, gain +1/+1. It's a pretty strong mage minion, and remember, minion mage might be a thing. Probably with elementals, though, so probably not in this way. It's basically like a reporter, but it costs 1 more mana, and it's a mage-only card. I think it's okay, but okay doesn't mean it sees constructed play most of the time. Snap Freeze, well, rip in peace Shatter. It's basically Shatter, except if it doesn't shatter, it can just freeze a minion, which is better than Shatter. It's just a better Shatter. Does Shatter blow anyone away? No, Shatter's horrible. But the flexibility, I think, is actually quite strong. If you're playing Elemental Mage, you got Water Elementals, you probably got Frostbolts. Yeah, you got endless Water Elementals from the Frost Lich Jaina. So Snap Freeze is pretty good there, but I think it's still a bit too situational, though we'll see. Priest cards, we have Divine Hymn. Holy crap, is this so much better than Holy Light. So Paladins have this card called Holy Light, which is 2 mana, heal any one thing for 6. This heals all your stuff for 6. That's really good. You can just use this, honestly, to bump up your health when you're about to die in the late game. So it's actually a very flexible card, and the peak of this card is just outrageous. You know, you can heal so many of your own cards and heal your own face. It's so good. There's so many synergies out there for a card like this, including our next card, Nightscale Matriarch. 7 mana for 9, Dragon. Whenever a friendly minion is healed, so they first have to be damaged. It's not that easy. But whenever a friendly minion is healed, you get a 3/3 whelp, which is ridiculous. This card can spiral completely out of control very quickly. It is no doubt an extremely high power level card. The main thing you have to consider is, well, you can't just run all the high mana cost powerful minions in a priest deck. It requires some balance. You have to play as many of those as you can, while still having enough board clears in early game to not just lose by the time you want to play cards like these and use their combo effects. So, Priest has a lot of very powerful late game cards. This is one of them. Is this the best one? I don't know. Maybe? I guess we'll see. It's certainly in consideration for one of the best late game Priest cards in a Priest deck that can host it, that has a lot of healing effects, probably Aucanize, and a lot of injured minions, something like that. Could be very good. Could be one of the meta-defining decks, in fact. Quartz Elemental, 5 mana, 5/8, it can't attack while damaged. Overall, that is a hell of a lot of stats. The health is notably important for Priest, because Priest wants to make use of this hero power, and it probably will make use of its hero power with a card like that. It pushes a pretty big threat. You almost always are going to heal it because your opponent's either going to kill it off or just keep it constantly damaged so you can't attack with it. But that's fine. that just makes your hero power so good. And if you're playing Odd Priest and you have an upgraded hero power healing for 4, it's going to be almost impossible for your opponent to do that every turn. So very good stuff. Another priest card that really does impress me is the Squashling. It's a 2-mana 2/1 Echo card that restores 2 health to whatever target you want. So again, a very new, flexible healing card. More importantly, Priest has struggled to balance early game, mid game, late game with all the different cool removals and board clears. This card is a decent early game card, and this card is also at the same time a decent late game card. The Echo mechanic, particularly this card that has the additive of healing-based synergy, makes Priest very powerful. Now, just playing a value-based Priest deck might not be a thing, but the slight combo potential with the Squashling, I think it does elevate the card above that to just really good. Paladin got a few new additions. We got Paragon of Light, so it's a 3-mana 2/5, which is a very strong statted card for board control, which is what Paladin basically thrives on doing. And if this card has 3 or more attack, it gains Taunt and Lifesteal. So that Bell buffing card, along with a few others, suddenly look a lot better than before. This card seems like a very high power level card, especially if you're running a few buffs. And even if you're not, like an Arena, 3-mana 2/5 for Paladin, that's pretty good actually. We got a 5-mana 3/4. It's got Divine Shield and Rush. The combination of attacking right away with Divine Shield is very strong, a lot stronger than it looks. Cards that look really bad, like Argent Commander, are still staples for late game arena pushes. And this card is very much like that. I don't think it's much better than Argent Commander, but I think it's slightly better, largely because, again, Paladins have an ease of buffs, so if you look at it, it's more or less kind of like a crappy Fire Elemental, but if you have some attack buffs or some health buffs, it suddenly surpasses Fire Elemental, which is impressive. That's really good. Do not underestimate that combination of abilities. And we have Hidden Wisdom, a new Paladin secret. After your opponent plays 3 cards in a turn, draw 2 cards. So if it works, it's 1 mana, draw 2, later on. Now, drawing later on for 1 mana is fine. Yeah, if you play this on like turn 1 or you cheat it out with some of the new secret tech cards for Paladin, that will work. I had some doubt that playing 3 cards in 1 turn was going to happen very often, but after seeing even some of the control decks that people are playing right now, especially the ones on the reveal stream, I don't have much of a doubt anymore. I think this condition is fairly easy to satisfy, so much so that you'd probably see one of these cards in most Paladin decks moving forward. Prince Liam is the new Paladin legendary. 5-mana 5/5 Battlecry transforms your 1-cost cards in your deck, not in your hand, in your deck, into legendary minions. So the idea is kind of like the old Paladin style, where you want to make use out of your crappy cards in the late game by either cheating them out through secret technologies or through using like divine favors and just dumping everything constantly. This card is in line with that. It does a similar thing. It has a little bit of negative synergy, specifically with divine favor, because if you divine favor and get a few clunky legendaries, your second divine favor will be a lot worse. But honestly, I think it could reliably replace 1 divine favor in that type of deck. I don't know. I think it's pretty good, but I'm not too blown away by it. Paladins have options for this type of effect, even though it's obviously Paladins don't create legendaries and place them into the decks. But the idea of converting weak cards into strong cards or just overpowering your opponent because of that is not new to Paladin. We only saw 1 new rogue card, is the Cutthroat Buccaneer. 3-mana 2/4 pirate in the combo, gives your weapon +1 attack. Nothing crazy. People are probably still going to try to make the Kingsbane rogue work, and this card will help it, but it will certainly not define it, and I don't even think it'll be an auto-include. It's just a pretty good card, mostly to be used in Arena, I imagine. Earthen Might, Shaman finally hops on the board of 2-mana +2/+2 buffs, and its additional effect is if you're targeting an elemental, you get a random elemental to your hand. Random is worse and it's sometimes better than Discover. Discover, you can only get neutral and class cards. Random is any class, but it is not weighted for your class. So we've had Discover elemental effects in the past that have been notably powerful with Shaman, because Shaman has very powerful class-based elementals. Now, this will not give you an occurrence boost on those, but you might get some really powerful combos getting perhaps some Mage elementals. So that's for 1. We have a new Echo card for Shaman. It's a Murloc 2-mana 2/2 Echo. It's interesting. but I don't see this seeing play outside of Arena. Yeah, maybe there's like the Murloc quest guy for like a late game quest push. Nah, it's a bit too weak, I think. Zap, new Shaman spell, deal 2 damage to a minion. It's kind of like a worse backstab because you have to overload for 1. It's better in the case that you can use it on a damaged minion. It doesn't have to be an undamaged minion, though typically minions are undamaged when you want to remove them. Typically, a minion that you want to remove is one that your opponent played in the last turn. So that's not much of an advantage. This card, I think, overall is much worse than backstab. Doesn't mean it's bad, but it's much worse than backstab. I think Zap may not be a card you include in your deck list, though you might. I think it's largely a card that you hope to eventually get through cards like Hagatha, the new Shaman Death Knight card. Whenever you play a minion, you get a spell. You have a lot of minion cycling effects, so eventually you're going to get a whole bunch of like 1 and 0 mana cost spells that don't have very powerful effects, much like Zap, and eventually you're going to want to have cards, maybe like an Auctioneer, so you can play that and dump all of these low drop spells to regain the value that you lose from randomizing into them. Another low cost spell is Blazing Invocation. A pretty powerful spell to get randomly, I'd say. Battlecry means being discovered will be Shaman or neutral and will have a 400% occurrence boost for Shaman class cards, which is certainly notable. Shaman is a pretty clunky class because it has very win more effects and very powerful board clears, so you will often have 1 mana floating. So if you're playing a deck based around Battlecries, that might actually be a pretty good card. And if you're just playing a bit of a clumsy deck, that might be a good enough card just to throw in there. Shaman is not usually a class that you just have spare cards left to fill in your deck list, but if you do, Blazing Invocation is a pretty fair card to include in there. And then we have, this is a big one, boys, Shudder Walk. The Shaman legendary minion doesn't look like much. 9 mana, 6/6, repeat all battle cries from cards you played this game, and you have random targets and stuff. So I didn't think this card was very good at face value, but when I saw it seeing play in the reveal stream, it was pretty mind-blowing. If you're playing this with like Serenite Chain Gang, it duplicates itself. There's a lot of very powerful battlecry effects that you constantly want to see reoccurring, and there is an infinite draw/value combo with this and a card I'll show you guys here in a second. It's a neutral minion that shuffles, as a battlecry, shuffles a copy of a minion back into your deck. And if you have ever used that effect prior to playing Shudder Walk, and you're playing Shudder Walk on an empty board, it must target Shudder Walk, so your Shudder Walk gets a copy of itself put back into your deck and then fills the board with copies of Serenite Chain Gang. And then when you draw the next one, you play it again, then it puts a copy back in the deck. And you play that one again, then it puts a copy back in the deck. It's a proactive, infinite value, anti-fatigue mechanic for Shaman, and that is ridiculously powerful, more so than you might imagine. If you think this card is bad, you're wrong. Rabid Worgen is the only warrior card that we saw revealed in the last stream. Is a 3 mana 3/3 brush, which is not horrible, but probably not constructed quality. Just a pretty strong, like pretty damn strong arena card, but that's it. For Warlock, we saw Curse of Weakness. I think this is one of my favorite cards of the set. The effect doesn't seem particularly powerful for 2 mana, but the flexibility is absolutely mind-blowing. You can even play this in a zoo deck. If you have a bunch of low minions, you play like one of these, and you just obliterate your opponent's board for free. That's certainly worth 2 mana, maybe sometimes 4. If you're playing a Control Warlock, Control Warlocks have a lot of extremely powerful board clear effects, even more so now with like the new legendary Lord Godfrey. So stalling has a lot of value in itself. And because the -2 attack is effective until your next turn, if you're just really behind on the board, you can just play like 2 of these and take no damage. And that's it. Yeah. 4 mana, take no damage, maybe you heal some, maybe you just tap, and then the next turn, you're just twisting Nether anyway, right? So it's an incredibly powerful stall card. I really love this. I think it's just going to have to see play somewhere because it's so remarkably flexible. Dark Possession is a new 1-mana Warlock card. You have to deal damage to a friendly character, so you can do that to yourself and activate the synergy of taking self-inflicted damage on your own turn. There's certainly many triggers for that. That can be a positive effect overall, or if you're going to trade a minion to a minion that's going to die anyway, you can just deal 2 damage to that to not take 2 damage to yourself. The effect is Discover a Demon. A lot of the powerful board clear demons have cycled out in the upcoming standard rotation. Abyssal Enforcer, for instance, is no longer going to be part of standard, so the Discover a Demon thing is not going to be as strong as you might think, but it's still pretty strong. I just don't think it's constructed strong. I do think it is pretty strong in Arena, where you're going to be able to cheat out cards like Lord Jaraxxus or something, where you otherwise are not going to be drafting them very frequently. Fiendish Circle, this has Arena written all over it. We had the exact same card for Shaman using the Murlocs instead of Imps, and that saw exclusively play in the quest-based Murloc Shaman. And trust me, there's a lot less Demon synergy than there is Murloc synergy. So this card is pretty weak, decent in Arena, that's it. Ratcatcher, 3-mana 2/2 rush, destroy a friendly minion and gain its attack and health. So it's more or less kind of like a, what is it? It's the Void thing, the 3-mana. Oh man, I forget what it's called. Anyway, the idea of this card is if you want to play more of a minion or tempo based like Q block, or maybe you want to throw in some eggs in there, rather than having to use the self-destruction healing mechanics, you can use a self-destruction minion buffing mechanics, so you can push for even more tempo with some of these combos. Now it's a little bit slower because this costs 3 mana, unlike some of the other activators that cost 0 or 1 mana, but you get stats on the board, and you can't underrate that. I think this is going to be a pretty underrated card, though no guarantee it'll see play. Witchwood Imp, 1-mana 1/1 stealth, so it's kind of just an annoying little crap, and the death rattle gives a random friendly minion +2 health. The way I see this is in Constructed, people play 1 health, 1 drops, and 2 drops, so you play this on 1, you play a good 2 drop, you buff the health of your 2 drop. It's pretty good, it's zooey, it's what Warlock does, it's not too bad. Witchwood Piper, 4-mana 3/3 Battlecry, draw the lowest cost minion from your deck. Now, if you are just playing whatever minions, this is very much 4-mana 3/3 draw whatever card, which is not really good enough for Constructed, but pretty good in Arena. The idea for Constructed is you play this in a combo deck. If you have minions as part of your combos, you can leverage to draw them specifically, which can be very powerful, especially if you're relying on legendary minions. If your combo involves 2 or 3 spells that you can have 2 of and 1 legendary minion, playing 1 Witchwood Piper will drastically increase your occurrence of pulling the combo off. You can run 2, but if the combo piece that you require is over 4 mana, that will slow down the forceful draw of that combo piece, so it's probably not recommended, but it's still pretty good, right? Then we have Baleful Banker. This is the card that copies a friendly minion and puts it back into your deck. So the effect is pretty weak. It's a pretty crappy stat for a 2-drop. I don't know if this is going to see much play outside of the Shudder Walk Shaman with the Death Knight and all that kind of crap, which I think will absolutely see some play. Other than that, I think it's a pretty weak card, but who knows? Maybe in the future we'll get more cards that work with that. Vicious Scalehide, 2-mana 1/3 Lifesteal Rush. Doesn't look like much, but again, Lifesteal and Rush is a pretty powerful combination with buff effects, and there's certainly a number of buff effects that have been released in this expansion. Notably, the Hunter one, 4 mana +3/+3. It adds 3 copies of the buffed version of the minion back into your deck. Certainly very strong if you can pull that off. So it's a combo-based, decent statted 2-drop with surprising synergy within itself. That's pretty good, I think. Pretty good. I think we'll see a little bit of this card. The Dragon Egg is a 1-mana 0/3 egg, and it gives you a random dragon when it dies. Now, the effect isn't too powerful, but what is interesting is the fact that it is an egg with 3 health. Almost all the eggs we've had in the past have had 2 health, at least the ones that cost 1 or 2 mana. So for 1 mana, it has an abnormal amount of health for an egg. So the idea is you play eggs when you can play buffs, and if you can play buffs on this, it's going to be stronger than the other eggs, and the on-death trigger is still really good. So this is a pretty damn good card. We have Dragon Synergy on a neutral, maybe taunt minion. It's a 7-mana 3/11, how about that? And if you're holding a dragon, you gain 1 attack and taunt, making it a 7-mana 4/11 taunt. Is that good? Yes, that is good. That is really good. There's a lot of dragon synergy being lost, mostly in Priest, but Priest is kind of the only class playing dragons, so the whole dragon theme thing we'll have to figure out once again, but I'm a little bit optimistic that it will happen. Cauldron Elemental, 8 mana 7/7. Your other elementals have +2 attack. It cost 8. This is an arena card, ladies and gentlemen. Then we have Chief Inspector, 5 mana 4/6, Battlecry, destroy all enemy secrets. This is probably the new best way to deal with enemy secrets, as things like Flare can get counterspelled. Minion Battlecry effects typically occur before the minion enters play, so if you're playing Chief Inspector, it should actually remove all your opponent's secrets before triggering any. If your opponent has like Mirror Entity, I do not believe that it will trigger Mirror Entity with Chief Inspector, so pretty good stuff. And if a lot of people are playing secrets, a lot of other people are going to be playing Chief Inspectors, and should be some fun there. And we have Darkmire Moonkin, 7 mana 2/8, spell damage +2. Why not just play Malygos? Then we have Deranged Doctor, 8 mana 8/8, death rattle, restore 8 health to your hero. So horrible stats, a lot of mana. Heal is premium, but it has to die for you to get healed, so that's not happening. You play this against aggro, they're going to ignore it, and they're just going to kill you before it goes off. So this is an okay arena card at best. 4 mana 1/6, Lifesteal Taunt. It's a demon, which is interesting, but not interesting enough. If you're playing a lot of buffs and there's a lot of face decks, maybe it'll fit into the meta, but I have my doubts. It looks very much like, you guessed it, a pretty decent arena card, but just pretty decent. I don't even think it's that good in arena. Furious End is a 7 mana 5/9 Taunt, nothing special. You know where stats are good? Do you? You know where Taunt is good? Do you? Yeah, that's right, it's arena. Henchclan Thug is a 3 mana 3/3. After your hero attacks, give this minion +1/+1. This has potential to see some constructed play because it's really easy to get this trigger off. If you're playing Rogue, for instance, and you get a weapon on turn 2, don't use it. Play this on turn 3, attack once. You have a 3 mana 4/4, threatening a 3 mana 5/5 on the following turn. That is an extremely high tempo card. So this is really good in arena where power levels are slightly smaller, and that is a pretty good power level. Perhaps so good enough for some constructed play, but I would think it's largely going to be limited to Rogue. Life Drinker, 4 mana 3/3, Battlecry, deals 3 to the opponent's hero, and you gain 3. So it's basically a 6 health swing attached to a 4 mana 3/3. That's not very good right now because I think most of the cards and decks that we expect to see are going to be heavy board-centric decks, very zoo-like decks. But whenever there's going to be a meta where it's going to be face deck versus face deck, Life Drinker is going to be a very good card. I just don't think we'll see that for a while. Lost Spirit, 2 mana 1/1, death rattle, give your minions +1 attack. That's kind of crappy, even for arena standards. Mad Hatter, 4 mana 3/2, Battlecry, randomly toss 3 hats to other minions. Each hat gives +1/+1. So if all 3 hats land on your minions, you're looking at a 4 mana 6/5 worth of stats. And that's pretty good. Offensive based, maybe you can buff your own minions. Typically will, because you'd only generally play this when you'd clear out your opponent's minions through trading. Then you play Mad Hatter, you get the full effect. It's a pretty powerful effect. I think it's on the edge of seeing play, so try it. I think it might be good. Marsh Drake is a 3 mana 5/4 dragon. He gives a 2/1 poisonous minion for your opponent, which makes it really good with Potion of Madness, as people who are watching the stream specified. Except Potion of Madness is cycling out of standard. So that's a lot less good as a result. It's probably a card we'll see a little bit in Wild. It's probably a card we're going to be happy to see in Arena, particularly as a rogue, because on turn 2, in Arena you develop a weapon as a rogue. That's just kind of what you do. Otherwise, it seems a little bit too clunky to see consistent play. Night Prowler, 4 mana 3/3, and if this is the only minion on the battlefield, gain +3/+3. So 4 mana 6/6 Beast. I think that's very unlikely. I think the only class that can pull that off is Warlock with Defile consistently enough, and then you have to ask yourself, if a Warlock is playing Defile, it's probably playing Control, so what would a Control Warlock care about a 4 mana 6/6? That's right. It wouldn't. So it's a bit too clumsy for my taste. Then we have Sandbinder, 4 mana 2/4, Battlecry, draw an elemental from your deck. Now, I fail to see how this is better than just drawing a random card from your deck, because elementals are largely only good if you have a lot of them. If you have a lot of them, you might as well just draw cards, not specifically elementals. Perhaps there's some combos that require elementals that this could be used in, but I haven't really stretched my imagination to realize what those might be. I think this card is pretty weak, but one powerful combo requiring an elemental or centered around elemental is going to change that entirely. Swamp Leech. 1 mana, 2/1 lifesteal. Yeah, whatever. Then we have Tanglefur Mystic, 3 mana, 3/4. Add a random 2-drop minion to each player's hand. The 3 mana, 3/4 stat line is very strong, and more importantly, you get to potentially mill your opponent, and you get to potentially add to your hand. We saw this play on the reveal stream in hand minion-based Druid, and it looked pretty good. Really. I think this might be a surprisingly powerful card that might see some play. Actually, I think it will see some play. Then we have a 4 mana 0/9 Taunt. Eat your heart out, Mogushan Warden. So it's okay. You can play this in Priest, Inner Fire, or the Inner Fire minion. It's alright. 4 mana 9/9 Taunt is the dream. But again, it might get silenced. I don't know. It looks a bit strange, a bit too inconsistent, but potentially strong enough in that exact deck. Then we have, finally, Walnut Sprite, 3 mana 3/3 Echo, which sucks. It's a Rena card. So that about does it. A lot of really cool cards, a lot of mediocre cards, a lot of arena fair cards, which is actually great for the game mode we play and love. But for now, that'll do it. In the end, you have to play with the cards to see just how good they are, and I will be doing that all day on Thursday, on the 12th, on release. I'm going to start streaming very early on. I'm going to start streaming, I think, around 11 a.m. Eastern, so 12 hours early stream, and I'm going to start when the expansion ends up being launched with opening a whole bunch of packs, largely opened through the Amazon coins the Amazon App Store has given me, because, you know, I've done that promotion and stuff. And of course, as a reminder, if you guys do want to buy your packs through Amazon coins, you can get some savings, and right now they have an additional promotional offer where for $40, you can get $50 in Amazon coins, and you get $25 worth of Gamer Sensei credits. So take advantage of that offer. Hope you guys are hyped like I am about the expansion, and I hope to see you guys on the stream. Thank you for watching the video. There's a lot more content. A lot more content this Thursday, specifically. Expansions being released. Don't know exactly when, but I will be streaming on Twitch, links below, starting at 11 a.m. EST. That's 12 hours earlier than my regular stream. I'll be streaming all day. We're not going to miss the launch of the new expansion, and I'm going to keep you guys busy with some really cool stuff until that happens. So come in and check it out.